Yo, what's going on, guys? This is BunnyMuffins. I have the meta snapshot for patch 10.19, so we're going to be going over the tier list, what's good, what's bad in the new set 4. So let's get into it. I am a former Challenger player, and now I make a ton of YouTube videos on guides on how to play TFT, how to get better in TFT, and all that. So if you guys are new to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be updating this tier list every Friday, and when you are subscribed, you get notifications on when it comes out right away. So right now there are like 4 comps that I think are the best, as in they're the most playable and you could go them very often. And these compositions are the Ashe carry with Elderwoods and Brawlers, Cultists either 3, 6, or 9 with combination of Keeper or Sharpshooter. There's the 4 to 6 Sharpshooter composition and the Enlightened build with Talon and Morgana carry. Now in the B tier, a lot of these, you win if you hit these perfectly, but you need a very specific chosen in order to make all of these work, and specific starts for all of them. We'll go over how to play each and every one of these, but these compositions are, well, Ninja's the exception to this, but Moonlight Lissandra, Moonlight Aphelios, Duelist, Wukong carry, Warlords, and Twisted Fate Reroll. All of these comps, you need super specific chosen units, you need very specific starts and starting items, so that's why they're in B tier. They're very good if you hit them, but it's just, you can't play them every game. Ninjas you can play pretty often, but they're just not that strong compared to all these 4 comps at the top. Lastly, in C tier, we have 6 Mages and 6 Fortune. Fortune we're not going to be going over this week because it looks like Fortune's not really a real build. And then 6 Mages, they're just much weaker than the Ninja, Enlightened, Sharpshooter, Cultist, and Ashe comps right now. So we'll get into these later. But just going into the tier list, we have the first comp, which is the Ashe, Brawler, Elderwood. So recently, the first person to hit Masters in Europe played exclusively this Brawler comp. Different variations. So I put one of them up here, but you'll notice that right now we have 6 Elderwood and 6 Brawler. This is the comp he goes for the most, but you could have 9 Elderwood, you could have 3 Elderwood and 8 Brawlers, you could have 4 Brawlers. There are a lot of different variations. You could just add as many sets as you want to this, but essentially all you really need is Quicksilver Sash on Ashe, and then preferably Rageblade, and then a 3rd damage item. The 3rd damage item could be something like Giant Slayer, it could be Bloodthirster, it could be Hand of Justice, a lot of different options there. And then you put your tank items on Nunu, and then ability power on Set. This composition's really good because you have a lot of flexibility on your chosen units. You could get either a Brawler or an Elderwood, and since there's so many Brawlers and Elderwoods, there's a very high chance that you'll get one of them as a chosen unit, which makes this comp super forceable. You also have Elderwood spat to help you out to get to 6 or 9 Elderwood. So they're just like a ton of different ways to get to a very respectable build. Again, the only champions you really need are like Ashe, Warwick, Nunu, and Maokai, because those are the core for every composition for 3 Elderwood and 2 Brawler. If we go down here, I list out how difficult the comps are to play. I also list out the item dependency and the variance. Variance pretty much just means like how much of the comp is like a 1st or 8th comp. Since this comp is able to be played pretty often, the variance is pretty low. I also have list out the requirements here. So don't really go for this composition unless you have these requirements. So the requirements right now are, as I said before, chosen Elderwood or Brawler. Sometimes Hunter works if you get Hunter Ashe, but that's more of a rare scenario. You kind of just take it just because the Ashe is so strong. And then another requirement, as we talked about earlier, is Quicksilver on Ashe, and then preferably you'd get like a Brawler start because that's a much easier transition into the comp. So the way to play this build is you just play your strongest board, use Tahm Kench as your tank item holder for Nunu or Warwick for the tank items, and then use almost any damage unit to hold items for Ashe. I prefer Aphelios, but you could use Zed. You could use like Nidalee. You could use any 1 cost that's range pretty much to hold items for Ashe. And then at 8, you play a combination of Elderwood and Brawler. And at 9, you play as many sets as possible, and then put AP items and tank items on Set. I also list out counters for a couple of the compositions here. So if you guys are facing this composition a lot, I do list out counters for each of the compositions, and I'll build this list as the set goes on, just because we don't actually know for sure what counters what yet. We just have a general idea right now. Next up, we have Cultist plus anything. The most popular version is 6 Cultists plus anything, but you could go 3, 6, or 9 Cultists. At 3 Cultists, you're most likely playing like 4 Keepers or like a ton of legendary units. But this composition, similar to the first one, super flexible. You prefer either Dusk or Cultist chosen. If you get Cultist chosen, you don't have to run Evelyn. If you get Dusk chosen, you could run 4 Dusk. You could even get Keeper chosen and run 4 Keeper. A lot of different options here. And again, you could go 6 Cultists, you could go 9 Cultists, you could go 3 Cultists. It's super flexible. They all have the same build path. You kind of build like items for Riven and Kennen. So Kennen likes Morellonomicon, but if you don't play Kennen, you could put the Morellonomicon on Cassiopeia, for example. Both Riven and Kennen like Guardian Angel. They like other tank items. So a lot of items are shared, and then you use all your offensive items on either Jhin or Callista. You go for Jhin if you have like a lot of sword items, and you go for Callista if you have a lot of bow items. So I know Callista's not listed here, so I'll go over her items now. It's items like Runon's Hurricane. She even likes stuff like Hextech Gunblade because she heals a lot when she does her execute. Rage Blade's decent on her. Pretty much anything with attack speed is going to be good on her. So scrolling down, this comp is pretty difficult just because it's much more flexible than the Ashe comp, and it's a little harder to execute. With that in mind, you do have lower item dependency because Riven can pretty much use any offensive or defensive items, and yeah, it's just much more flexible than the one before, but much more difficult to play. Some of the early requirements, there aren't really too many requirements because you could always just go into this comp from somewhere else, but getting like an early cultist helps a ton because you just win streak the entirety of stage 2. You have a lot more health for stage 3 and stage 4, and then you could go like level 8 really easily or level 9 really easily and then play a bunch of the strong units in the game right now. So that's pretty much how you play. I like rolling on 7 until stable at 4-1 or 4-2. Stable is different depending on your game. Sometimes you don't even have to roll at all. Sometimes you have to roll down to 20 gold. Sometimes somewhere in between. I generally like staying at 20 or above gold in order to be able to hit level 8 at 5-1 or 5-2 pretty comfortably. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So going on to the A tier now, we have Sharpshooter. Sharpshooters, they're pretty interesting. I think Jinx carries the best right now. And you pretty much just stack Jinx with Rage Blades and Shojins. You could even add a defensive item like Trap Claw or Quicksilver Sash as well. And then you do all your damage items on Jhin. So Jinx is kind of like the support carry because she CCs and stuns everything, because Sharpshooter buff allows her rocket that stuns people to bounce around the map, and then Jhin just ideally kills everything. In this version here, we have 3 Cultists and Spirit to complement the build, but there are a lot of different options here as well. You could drop down to 4 Sharpshooter if you don't get Chosen Sharpshooter, because you don't need Chosen of any unit to play this build, which is one bonus of this. A lot of the other builds I said you need like Chosen Elderwood or Brawler, for example, but this one, like, Chosen Sharpshooter is nice, but it's not by any means necessary. Because going down to 4 Sharpshooter, you get to drop units such as Nidalee, and Nidalee is just not that great of a unit in the late game, so you could run a bunch of other stuff instead. But overall, pretty good comp, pretty decent. So next up, we have the Enlightened build. This is one of my favorite builds because there are a lot of different options. Again, you could go almost any Chosen. So you could go Chosen Assassin, maybe go for Assassin. You could go Chosen Enlightened. You could go Chosen Adept. You could even do Dazzler or Mystic as your Chosen. There are just so many different Chosen options, which makes it really flexible. And again, flexibility is always good because then you could do it almost every game, and it lowers the chance that you can get completely screwed by randomness. What I like to do is solo tank Shen with the Gargoyle Stoneplate, get a Morellonomicon on Morgana. This is probably the most important item. You just need one Morellonomicon on Morgana. She doesn't need too many other items after that. And then you get 3 sword items on Talon. I like Guardian Angel, Infinity Edge, and Bloodthirster. You could use things like Handed Justice. Sometimes even Giant Slayer is really good. Giant Slayer is good if you're facing a lot of tanks. So if you like misposition your Talon, Giant Slayer is really good because then he could still kill the tanks and then move on to the damage units afterwards. Units such as Lux are really good because it gives you both Dazzler and Divine. Divine's on Aurelia, which gives Adept and Enlightened. So a lot of these are like kind of synergy based additions, but they're all pretty solid units on their own. Again, super flexible comp, a little more difficult to play just because you have to know which unit to take out based on what Chosens you get. You have to know when to go 4 Assassin, you have to know when to go 6 Enlightened, when to go 4 Mystic. So that's why it's a little more difficult to pilot, but as long as you get Morgana with Morellonomicon and like a 2-star Talon with 3 items, you should be able to do pretty decently every game. So next up, we have the B tier. So first up, Ninja, either Shade or Assassin. Don't go both, just choose one or the other. This depends on what Chosen you get. I generally only play this comp if I've chosen Akali or chosen Zed, and you build differently based on what you get. If you go for chosen Zed, you go for 3-star Zed, so you end up slow rolling for the composition at level 6 or level 7, depending on the state of the game. And then you add in as many Shade units as possible. I like Rapid Fire Cannon on Zed, Rage Blade, and something like a Guardian Angel as like an insurance policy. On Akali, her best in slots are Infinity Edge, Blue Buff, and Rapid Fire Cannon. I like solo tanking the Shen with a Gargoyle Stoneplate again, adding Aurelia for Adept, Kennen right behind him, and then Zillion as the other Mystic unit. So I generally run these 4 units in the middle, and then depending on Whether I'm going for a Kali carry or Zed carry, I run the Shades or the Assassins accordingly. But again, I'd try not to play this comp too much because it is in the B tier, so there are just much better options to go for. But if I get a chosen Zed, chosen a Kali pretty early in the game, you might as well just go for it. Maybe you have some RFC components and you could pretty much just go for this build, and it's pretty strong. If you hit like the 3-star Akali or 3-star Zed, games get pretty easy, but again, it's just difficult to do. You can't do it every game, so that's why it's in the B tier. Next up is Moonlight Lissandra. The one I've seen that works the best is the one with Vanguard. You pretty much get chosen Moonlight Lissandra, put ability power on her, put blue buff on her, or mana items on her, roll for Diana, Lissandra, Wukong, and Garen, get them all to 3-star. But you really only need Lissandra and Diana at 3-star. Wukong and Garen are just a bonus, so if you end up hitting them a lot as you roll, you just add them into your board. And then Lissandra just one-shots everything. It's actually kind of pretty funny. It's just really difficult to go for this comp because you need Moonlight Lissandra. And if you don't get it, you pretty much can't go for the composition. But if you hit it, you pretty much just win the game. And it's really easy to play. You just wait till you hit Lissandra and Diana, and then you just level up, play random units, maybe add in Sejuani and Aatrox for more tankiness. You could add Mystics. You could pretty much add anything to complement your team. It depends on the lobby. And again, there are only 7 units here, so you could just play random legendaries on top of this too. So there are just so many different ways you could go after you hit the Lissandra and Diana. But again, you could only go for this composition if you have a chosen Lissandra Moonlight. Next up, we have Moonlight Aphelios. I prefer only going this comp if I have chosen Moonlight, but I've seen people do it without the chosen Moonlight. Maybe you get a chosen Hunter Aphelios, you could still go for this. But I really prefer having some Moonlight that's chosen so I don't have to get so many 3-stars, because the more Moonlights you have, the more difficult it is to get everyone to 3-star, and then your team becomes much weaker for much longer. So that's why I try to avoid Moonlight compositions unless I have chosen Moonlight. I also get to run one less of the cheap unit. But essentially this build just revolves around Guardian Angel, Rageblade, and then a 3rd damage item for Aphelios. Guardian Angel is by far the most important item. Rageblade is by far the best damage item. And then 3rd item, you could do Static Shiv, you could do Spear Shoujin, you could do Deathblade, you could do Hand of Justice, you could do Infinity Edge. Pretty much any damage item will work. It doesn't really matter what the 3rd one is, it's just whatever you have at the time. And then you add things like Hunter buff, you could add more Brawlers. If you want more tankiness, you could add more Mystics if you want. But with 4-star Aphelios, you just auto-win certain games, and it's pretty easy to play. Again, you just slow roll for this composition and turn your brain off. Next up, we have Duelist. Oh, the way to counter this if you're facing a lot of Moonlights, crowd control completely destroys Aphelios. Champions like Aatrox, since Aphelios does not have Quicksilver Sash most of the time, Aatrox pulls him into the center of the map, and then your team kills him really quickly. That way he can't stack up Rageblade stacks, and he can't stack up turrets. But yeah, crowd control is really good on him as well. Stuff like Ezreal's good, Adept's good, Aurelia's good because she could reach him in the back with a disarm. Sejuani's good to stun backlines. Like, there are a lot of different options to go for, but pretty much any sort of crowd control is really strong against Aphelios. Next up, we have Duelist. Duelist, you only go for Duelist if you get chosen Yasuo early. And Yasuo is always a chosen Duelist. And then you'd go for either 4 Duelists or 6 Duelists. The build I'm showing right now is 4 Duelists. You could go for 6 Duelists by taking out the Enlightened units. And then your late game's rounded out by adding in a Yone for 2 Exile, which is really, really strong. The best items for Yasuo, I like Quicksilver a lot because it gets rid of Adept and Dazzler, or any of those attack speed slowing effects. And then after that, I like Infinity Edge, Rageblade, Titan's Resolve, Hand of Justice, Bloodthirster. There are a lot of different items that work on Yasuo. But I just do Quicksilver Sash and 2 damage items, just whatever I have in my inventory. But the build's pretty easy. It's similar to the other ones. You just slow roll for Yasuo after hitting him for Chosen. And I do prefer having some item components for him in Stage 2. Next up, we have Wukong carry. Wukong carry just revolves around 3-star Wukong with a Rapid Fire Cannon. You need Rapid Fire Cannon to play this build. You also need 3-star Wukong, so don't go for this build unless you have a good start for it. After that, you just add attack damage items to him. Infinity Edge is the best. Deathblade's not bad. Pretty much anything with attack damage, just throw it onto him, and he'll pretty much one-shot everything with his ability. Next up, we have Warlords. This one's looking a little goofy, but there's reasoning behind this. I really only go for Warlords if I get chosen Katarina for either Assassin or Warlord. I don't go for it if I get Fortune Katarina. The reason behind this, why I have no other units here, is because You can go 3, 6, or 9 Warlord. It does not really matter. The 3-star Katarina just wins games on her own. And then you just play other units for frontline. So stuff like Keeper's really good. You just play like random legendaries, random 4 costs with the Katarina, and maybe have like 3 to 6 Warlord with at least 2 Assassin. You'll pretty much do really well if you get a 3-star Katarina every game just because she one-shots everything. Not too much else to say there. Next up, we have Twisted Fate Annie Reroll. This one is super funny of a build. A little more flexible than the other reroll comps that we just went over right now because you only need Mage chosen, but you don't necessarily need Twisted Fate to be the chosen unit. You just need a lot of Twisted Fates early in order to be able to 3-star him, and then you build stuff like Jeweled Gauntlet and Mana or other ability power items, and he just one-shots everything. You also need Annie 3-star, so I do like having chosen Annie as my favorite chosen because you just need a lot of Annies, and it's hard to get 9 Annies without getting one of her chosen. But you just throw 3 tank items on Annie. Whenever you have a solo tank, Quicksilver Sash is a great addition because it avoids getting Zephyr'd. But you pretty much just build your team around Annie and TF. It's super strong if you hit it, but it's just hard to hit sometimes. Next up, we have C tier. This is very similar build to the one before, except you use Ahri carry. And this one's just feeling a little lackluster right now, just because all the Mystic units are so good. Ahri doesn't quite one-shot everything if people have a lot of Mystic. And in this build, you don't get the 3-star Annie like you do before in most cases. So it's just a little weak right now, and we'll see how they change it as the set goes on. Next up, we have 6 Fortune. We're not going to go over this week just because this comp is just too inconsistent right now. No one seemed to make it work yet, so we'll just have to see how this plays out in the future. For item priority, I like going Sword, Glove, or Chain Vest first. I think these 3 are the strongest items just because Guardian Angel is used in so many different compositions, such as Kennen comps, Riven comps, Aphelios comps. You could put it on like, it works in every comp. So even if it's not best for any composition, you could still play it in every composition. And a lot of this set is about flexibility because of how the chosen mechanic works. So I just like having Guardian Angel as an option early game. Glove's really good for Quicksilver Sash, Infinity Edge, Hand of Justice. Hand of Justice is a super popular item right now, and Glove's just probably the most flexible start. After that, I like Bow, Negatron, and Rod. It depends what comps you're going for and what comps you're good at, but all 3 of these have their own space. And then I think the 2 worst items are Belt and Tier. But honestly, if you start them right now, I don't think it's that much of a detriment because no one has a game super optimized yet, so you don't get super punished by having this. Normally, I have like an item quadrant down here. If you guys are new, the people who have seen this before already know what goes on here, but I'm still in the process of making this, so expect changes to this next week. Here's the summary again. Elderwood, Brawler, Ashe, probably the strongest comp, followed by Cultists. A lot of people are just like 2-tricking these and not playing anything else. Sharpshooter and Enlightened also really strong just because there are a lot of options. And then for the B tier, only go for them if you have the correct chosen units as we laid out before. And then try to avoid the C tier. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know if I missed a comp that you guys are playing a lot. Because a lot of these I include different variations. For example, for Cultists, I include like 3, 6, and 9 Cultists in the same build just because it's all built from the same start and you just go for whichever based on what units you get. So it's really hard to say like, oh, is like 9 Cultists better than 6 Cultists? It really just depends on what champions you get because you can't always go 9 Cultists, for example. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what's been working for you. Let me know what rating you guys are in the comments below. If you like this video, go ahead and like this video if it helped you climb when you played. But yeah, I'll be coming out with an update next Friday and every Friday after that for the entirety of the set. I'll come out with some composition guides, some gameplays, and maybe some VOD reviews in the future. But yeah, I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, and don't forget to catch my live stream on the weekends. Usually start around 3 p.m. US Eastern time, maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later, depending on when I wake up, honestly. But yeah, I'll see you guys there. And yeah, good luck on your climb. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe. And of course, smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.